Every city is shaped by invisible networks of buried infrastructure, impenetrable public policies, and decision-making processes that shape everything around us, from where a street vendor can park a cart, to how tall a building can be, to what happens when a young person gets arrested. True democracy can only happen when people understand the decisions that shape their lives and have a say in how it works. People most often excluded from these decisions, people of color, low-income families, immigrants, and youth, are often most impacted by them. By using the power of design and art to collaborate with the people most affected by these decisions, we wanted to demystify how the city works so that more people get a chance to make their voices heard.
When CUP first started, it was kind of a loose group of people that were really interested in the city and how it works.
The notion always was to put yourself in the place of the public. And so certainly you started out not knowing anything about a building code or anything about the Environmental Control Board. But the basic premise was, if we're going to hold our democracy accountable to its promises, these things that can't be decided alone have to be decided as groups.
There's no one who goes to work every day and says, okay, this law was just passed yesterday, here's how we're going to communicate it to the public now. So for us, we really try to focus on the places where people are really saying, hey, this thing is happening because we don't understand it, help us to understand it, help us to have a tool to communicate it. I think where CUP really started to become CUP was when the projects about figuring out how the city worked started to become useful to people that could actually use that information and advocate for themselves in different ways.
If we want to have some kind of an impact, we need to learn to translate what other people are telling us into our own language. Got arrested, now what? It's a comic book designed for young people going through the juvenile justice system.
Youth get arrested and they're really terrified and they have no idea what's happening to them. There are a handful of things they could do to help their situation out, and no one's going to tell them that. And so the idea of this guide is that it really breaks things down for them in the moment that they really need it.
Today, the Department of Probation in New York City actually distributes a copy of it to every young person coming into the system.
Sewer in a Suitcase comes from a youth education project that we did as a kind of workshop tool. We produce these to be used by community organizations, environmental organizations, to demonstrate what happens when it rains a lot in the city. This glitter here stands for pollution. New York City has what's called a combined sewer system, which means that water from apartment buildings joins up underground with water that comes in through the storm drains. Usually that water gets treated at a wastewater treatment plant. When it rains too much, that system gets overloaded and a lot of the untreated water spills out directly into New York City's waterways.
We designed Vendor Power for Street Vendor Project, a membership organization of New York City street vendors who are often recent immigrants and who don't spend a lot of time reading policy. They were really interested in having a tool that was primarily visual, but they wanted it to look official enough that they could actually show it to a police officer. Individual tickets in New York can cost as much as $1,000. These fines are for things like being located in the wrong place, or being too close to a building, or too close to an exit. Putting something into vendors' hands that lets them go about their business and not get in trouble for it has a huge impact.
We take these fundamental questions about how the city works and bring together a group of public high school students with CUP and a teaching artist, and we go out into the city to investigate answers to that question.
It's not like we have the answers and then we provide them to the students. We investigate together.
We start with a huge question, which was, who decides where supermarkets go?
Are there enough supermarkets in the Bronx? Why is that? How can things be different? What role can we have in the community? So we came up with this idea of having a comic/panel booklet so it can flip pages and can learn about the issue.
When we think about there's no food, there's no health. So making this project makes me think that these people in those little buildings are not living as they should.
So we could go with the community board and probably with our congressman ask for more supermarkets.
When we work with youth, we're really engaging their kind of natural cynicism about things, and I think that's often seen as a negative aspect of teenagers. But for us, that's where critical thinking comes from.
The goal of CUP's youth program has always been the understandability of the world, and architecture and design played the role of catalyzing that process.
The main goal is to increase civic participation, but I think the skill of being able to break down information in a visual way is something they definitely come away with.